Welcome to my first vegetable garden. My channel is all about helping new gardeners have a better garden. And today I wanted to really talk about the basics for starting seeds indoors. Try and demystify it a little bit, but really give you an idea of everything that you're going to need. Now you can do this on a large scale like everything you see here, or maybe you just want to start a half a dozen plants. The setups are very, very similar. So you're starting seeds indoors because you want to get them germinated, you want to get them growing, you want to have transplants 6-8 weeks before they would be ready to go outside, and that's typically because of the cold. The soil's too cold, the temperatures are too cold. So you can start seeds indoors and save a lot of money. The first thing that you're going to need that I recommend is some sort of shelving unit. And I recommend getting the wiring unit because you can hang chains or tie your lights to them and you can adjust them that way. So you're going to need a shelving unit. Really, you can get one that's maybe 5 levels. Even if you're just going to do a few, this tends to be what works best. Now, the lights, you can spend a lot of money going and buying grow lights. So this is 4 feet wide, which is what I recommend, 18 inches deep. So the depth of the shelf supports a seed starting tray. We'll go over all of this in a second. And the width also takes care of these 4-foot lights. Those are fluorescent bulbs. Those are tubes. The one down here, let's see, right here, that's LED. And you can buy either one. This setup here is actually only about $25. And the lumens value, I think, is 5,000 lumen, and the Kelvin value is 6,500. Well, what do I mean by that? So in order to start seeds indoors, you need to give them the right amount of light. So you want to understand what the lumens value is. Lumens is this number right here. So it says lumens 2600. I don't know if you can see it. Well, that didn't quite work, but you can take a look at it right here. So the top line says 2600 lumens. Again, that is brightness or light intensity, and the bottom number is the color, 6500 Kelvin, and that's really basically the color of daylight. But you want a lumens rating, you can get away with 2600, but you want a lumens rating of 3000 to 5000. Lumens is the brightness of the light, and you want really bright lights because when your seeds break the surface, they need to be hit by light so that they don't get tall and skinny and gangly looking. You want them to be short and stocky. So you need 3,000 to 5,000 lumens. You can find higher lumens. If your lumens value gets above 5,000, that means you can just raise these lights higher, and they can be further away from where your seeds are germinating. Kelvin, 6,500 Kelvin. That's the highest that it goes. You want a rating between 5100 and 6500 Kelvin, and that basically is the color of light. It mimics daylight. So those are the values. So when you go to buy your grow lights, don't buy anything that's called a grow light. You're going to pay 3 times as much. You can go and find these receptacles. Sometimes they have bulbs in them, and you would read on the packaging to make sure that they have the right lumens value and the right Kelvin's value. But you can also just buy the receptacle, no bulbs. And for instance, you might buy this, it will say T8 on it. That tells you what kind of bulb to buy. And right there, that's a T8. So you match the T8 fluorescent tube. They also come in LED tubes with a T8 receptacle. I hope that makes sense. But buying it this way is really, really inexpensive. You might hear of a value called the PAR value, P-A-R. I've never paid mind to that for 20 years. I grow great seedlings, great transplants. Par value, I think, is a little bit more valuable if you are growing plants to full size, flowering, and fruiting. But lumens and Kelvin is what you need. So you can set up the lights however you want, however you want to buy them, however you want to purchase them. And again, this system right here, just the LEDs, was $25. Now, for coverage for seedlings, for germinating seeds and your seed starts, you really want to put in 2 lights like this so that plenty of light is coming in. And as we work our way down, I'll explain to you how you can raise the lights, and you don't need as much light when your transplants are bigger and larger. So when your seedlings, or when you plant your seeds, you want these lights not to be more than 2 inches from the surface. In fact, If you can, for seed starts, you want them to be about 1 inch, and you can put some books or something under there. When the seed germinates and breaks the surface, you want it to be hit by light, or it's going to keep growing tall and skinny trying to go for the light. If they get hit by light, they stop growing, they start putting out leaves, and you get a nice stocky plant. Now that's important because when you are first germinating, you want them to be closer to the light. You can also, well, the other thing is how long do you leave these lights on? A lot of people say, well, I don't need the lights on because they're not going to germinate for 5 or 7 days. You could do that. But if you miss just a 24-hour period when these break the surface and there's no light, they're going to get tall and skinny, and it's going to be a problem. It's not really that expensive to run these lights. So I turn mine on. I put these under here. 3 days after being under there, I turn them on and I set them up with a timer. I highly recommend getting a timer. That will save you the headache of turning the lights on and off. I think that's a must-have. When you're first germinating, I leave the lights on. I recommend anywhere, from 12 to 14 hours. After they've been growing a couple of weeks, you can raise the lights. They don't have to be as close. The lights can be on 10 to 12 hours. After they've been growing, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, you can bring them down and the lights can be on for 8 hours. So let me just show you how the setup looks like. Up top here is where I would have the germinating seeds, and this is more the appropriate distance. And as they germinate up there, I might put them under here this way. There's a lot less light here, more light here, and I basically just rotate them as I water them. I'll take them out and spin them around. This is to save space. These are 72 individual pockets, individual cells. So you're going to need your cells, and you're going to need a flat. This is the flat. This holds the different cells. This is how you water. You need both of these. Now, I start 300-400 plants, so I want to start in these smaller cells because I can get more under here. But maybe you just want to start 24 plants. You can start them in these bigger cells, which means you don't have to pot these up. When you start in the smaller cells, the roots will grow, coil around, and then maybe you move them into something bigger like this, or you put them into a container like that. So if you're just growing, what is that, 6, 12, 18, 36 plants, you could just put in 6 tomato plants, some pepper plants, some eggplant. You can put different things in here, and this is all you're really going to need. Now, that being said, people say, well, why can't I just start in the biggest container? Because you do have to pot up, from here to the next size. You can do that, but if I tried to put in 72, 72, 72, 72 into these final resting places, so to speak, until they're ready to go outside, I would need a massive grow light system. So you want to time it so that certain things are just growing in here. Lettuces, cool weather crops don't necessarily have to get planted into bigger containers. They would go outside first and then come in the tomato plants. If I'm starting 100 tomato plants, I'm going to need to start them in something like this, or maybe something like this, where I can get more under the lights, or I'm going to need a system bigger than this if I want to just start everything in, the final pots. I hope that makes sense. Now, there's a whole lot of information on when to start cool weather crops, warm weather crops. If you want to subscribe to my channel, I'll be going over all of that. But I just wanted to give you some idea of the starting supplies. You're going to need lights, fluorescent or LED. You're going to need the flat trays. You're going to need the different size cells, and you're going to need a shelf to hang them on. And you can just move these up and down as needed, but I'm always starting different plants at different times. So right up top is seed starting, and then you can start seeing the height gets higher on these lights. And this is when the larger plants would go under here. They don't need as much light. I don't worry too much about it. And in fact, when they get even bigger, maybe at 8 weeks, sometimes I just put them under a single light and they survive and do okay. Now, if for some reason you don't want to spend all the money on all of this, you just want to start maybe one tray, You can buy something like this. You buy a clamp, it fits into there just like that, and you can start 6, 12, 18, 24 tomato pepper plants right in there. This is a 6500 Kelvin light, 6000 lumens. Put it on some books if you need to raise it up closer. These actually fan out. So you would put this on some books, raise it closer for germination, and as the plants get bigger, you could drop it down. But if you want to start indoors, these are the materials that you're going to need in some capacity to get your plants started. Hope this gives you some idea of what you need to grow transplants indoors. And again, if you subscribe, I will show you how to plant just about everything in these seed trays, move them along, and get them ready for planting outdoors. Thanks for watching, and please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com.